Do what? Where is it?
It's right there in the hallway. I dropped it.
Really quick. Why are we talking?
No, we're doing a quiz and those and quiz. Quiz and those and quiz.
We're gonna have the thing read the section to us and then do notes and then the quiz.
That's what we're doing.
Thank you. Is anyone still working on the bell ringer?
Yeah.
You have 1 more minute.
Everybody cares. Keep on talking to everybody cares. Pop some more Ricky colors. When in pain, when feeling sticky, call Ricky. When you want to get sticky,
If
call
you do
Ricky.
not have a book yet, please get one.
Don't really. Yes, really, I do. John.
Sit down.
Well, somebody told us a book, but Trevor's got a book, John.
Huh?
Okay. Follow. What did you do to your book?
I didn't do this.
It fell apart while he was walking.
I didn't know who's
Okay.
coming out.
Follow along in your book when I turn the page on here. You turn your page.
141.
Yeah, it starts on 141. Do not talk. I will write people up. I already got to do that today.
Section 3. Call to Arms. An American story. At first, few colonists wanted a complete break with Britain. One of the most popular songs of the time, the Bold Americans, called for both liberty and continued loyalty to the British king. We'll honor George, our sovereign, while he sits on the throne. If he grants us liberty, no other king will own. If he will grant us liberty, so plainly shall you see, we are the boys that fear no noise. Success to liberty. As tensions mounted, however, a peaceful compromise was no longer possible. The Continental Congress. Colonial leaders realized they needed more than boycotts to gain the liberty they sang about in the Bold Americans. They needed the colonies to act together in their opposition to British policies. In September 1774, 55 men arrived in the city of Philadelphia. Sent as delegates from all the colonies except Georgia, these men had come to establish a political body to represent American interests and challenge British control. They called the new organization the Continental Congress. Delegates to the Congress. Major political leaders from all the colonies attended the Congress. Delegates to the Congress. Major political leaders from all the colonies attended the Congress. Massachusetts sent fiery Samuel Adams and his younger cousin John Adams, a successful lawyer. New York sent John Jay, another lawyer. From Virginia came Richard Henry Lee and Patrick Henry, two of the most outspoken defenders of colonial rights, as well as George Washington. Patrick Henry summed up the meaning of the gathering. The distinctions between Virginians, Pennsylvanians, New Yorkers, and New Englanders are no more. I am not a Virginian, but an American. Decisions of the Congress. Although the delegates were hardly united in their views, they realized they needed to work together. First, they drafted a statement of grievances calling for the repeal of 13 acts of Parliament passed since 1763. They declared that these laws violated the colonists' rights. Their rights were based on the laws of nature, the principles of the English Constitution, and the several charters of the colonies. The delegates also voted to boycott all British goods and trade. No British products could be brought into or consumed in the colonies, and no colonial goods could be shipped to Britain. One of Congress's major decisions was to endorse the Suffolk Resolves. These resolutions had been prepared by Bostonians and others who lived in Suffolk County, Massachusetts. They called on the people of Suffolk County to arm themselves against the British. The people responded by forming militias, groups of citizen soldiers. Many wondered if war was coming. The answer came the following spring. Reading check. Explain. What was the purpose of the Continental Congress? The first battles. Colonists expected that if fighting against the British broke out, it would begin in New England. Militia companies in Massachusetts held frequent training sessions, made bullets, and stockpiled rifles and muskets. Some companies, known as Minutemen, boasted they would be ready to fight on a minute's notice. In the winter of 1774 and 1775, a British officer stationed in Boston noted in his diary, "The people are evidently making every preparation for resistance. They are taking every means to provide themselves with arms." Britain sends troops. The British also prepared for conflict. King George announced to Parliament that the New England colonies were in a state of rebellion and said that blows must decide who would control America. By April 1775, British General Sir Thomas Gage had several thousand soldiers under his command in and around Boston, with many more on the way. Gage had instructions to take away the weapons of the Massachusetts militia and arrest the leaders. Gage had instructions to take away the weapons of the Massachusetts militia and arrest the leaders. Gage learned that the militia was storing arms and ammunition at Concord, a town about 20 miles northwest of Boston. He ordered 700 troops under Lieutenant Colonel Francis Smith to march to Concord, where you will seize and destroy all the artillery and ammunition you can find. Alerting the colonists. On the night of April 18, 1775, Dr. Joseph Warren walked the streets of Boston looking for any unusual activity by the British Army. He saw a regiment form ranks in Boston Common and then begin to march out of the city. Warren rushed to alert Paul Revere and William Dawes, leading members of the Sons of Liberty. Revere and Dawes rode to Lexington, a town east of Concord, to warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock that the British were coming. Revere galloped off across the moonlit countryside, shouting, "The regulars are out," to the people and houses he passed along the way. When he reached Lexington, he raced to tell Adams and Hancock his news. Adams could barely control his excitement. What a glorious morning this is! Adams was ready to fight for American independence. Fighting at Lexington and Concord. At dawn, the Redcoats approached Lexington. When they reached the center of the town, they discovered a group of about 70 Minutemen who had been alerted by Revere and Dawes. Led by Captain John Parker, the Minutemen had positioned themselves on the town common with muskets in hand. A Minuteman reported there suddenly appeared a number of the king's troops, about 1,000, the foremost of which cried, "Throw down your arms, ye villains, ye rebels!" A shot was fired, and then both sides let loose with an exchange of bullets. When the fighting was over, 8 Minutemen lay dead. The British troops continued their march to Concord. When they arrived there, they discovered that most of the militia's gunpowder had already been removed. They destroyed the remaining supplies. At Concord's North Bridge, the Minutemen were waiting for them. Messengers on horseback had spread word of the British movements. All along the road from Concord to Boston, farmers, blacksmiths, saddle makers, and clerks hid behind trees, rocks, and stone fences. As the British marched down the road, the militia fired. A British officer wrote, "These fellows were generally good marksmen, and many of them used long guns made for duck shooting." By the time the Redcoats reached Boston, at least 174 were wounded, and 73 were dead. Looking back, the poet Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote in the Concord Hymn that the Americans at Lexington and Concord had fired the shot heard round the world. The battle for America's independence from Great Britain had begun. Reading check. Describing. What tactics did the colonists use against the British troops on their march back from Concord to Boston? More military action. Shortly after Lexington and Concord, Benedict Arnold, a captain in the Connecticut militia, was authorized to raise a force of 400 to seize Fort Ticonderoga on Lake Champlain. Ticonderoga was not only strategically located, but was rich in military supplies. Arnold learned that Ethan Allen was also mounting an expedition in Vermont to attack the fort. Arnold joined with Allen's force, known as the Green Mountain Boys, and together they caught the British by surprise. The garrison surrendered on May 10, 1775. Later during the war, Arnold conspired to surrender the key fort of West Point to the British and led British raids against the Americans in Virginia and Connecticut. Arnold became a general in the British Army. Building forces. After the battles of Lexington and Concord, the committees of correspondence sent out calls for volunteers to join the militias. Soon, the colonial militia assembled around Boston was about 20,000 strong. For several weeks, the American and British armies waited nervously to see who would make the next move. The Battle of Bunker Hill. On June 16, 1775, about 1,200 militiamen under the command of Colonel William Prescott set up fortifications at Bunker Hill and nearby Breed's Hill, across the harbor from Boston. The British decided to drive the Americans from their strategic locations overlooking the city. The next day, the Redcoats crossed the harbor and assembled at the bottom of Breed's Hill. Bayonets drawn, they charged up the hill. With his forces low on ammunition, Colonel Prescott reportedly shouted the order, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." The Americans opened fire, forcing the British to retreat. The Redcoats charged 2 more times, receiving furious fire. In the end, the Americans ran out of gunpowder and had to withdraw. The British won the Battle of Bunker Hill, but suffered heavy losses, more than 1,000 dead and wounded. As one British officer wrote in his diary, "A dear-bought victory, another such would have ruined us." The British had learned that defeating the Americans on the battlefield would not be quick or easy. Choosing sides. As American colonists heard about these battles, they faced a major decision. Should they join the rebels or remain loyal to Britain? Those who chose to stay with Britain, the Loyalists, did not consider unfair taxes and regulations good reasons for rebellion. Some remained loyal to the king because they were office holders who would lose their positions as a result of the revolution. Others were people who lived in relative isolation and who had not been part of the wave of discontent that turned so many Americans against Britain. Still others expected Britain to win the war and wanted to gain favor with the British. The Patriots, on the other hand, were determined to fight the British to the end, until American independence was won. Reading check. Describe it. What did the British learn from the Battle of Bunker Hill?
Okay. Go ahead and get out your chapter 5 notes. I think there's 8 notes today. 8 notes. Most of them are not too long. Does everyone have paper, pencil? Good. Okay. In Philadelphia, September 1774, 55 men came to establish a political body to represent American interests and challenge British control. They called the new organization the Continental Congress. Raise your hand if you're still working on this one. The people wanted to arm themselves against the British, so they formed militias, or groups of citizen soldiers. We're going to talk more about militias in a second. volunteers, known as Minutemen, boasted that they would be ready to fight on a minute's notice. And I'm assuming that's a picture of Minutemen.
Yeah, I think so. So when it's time to we're ready. What if I didn't have the what if
Anyone still working on this one? Okay.
Are those red coats?
No, does it say red coats?
They look like they have red coats.
Okay, you don't have to write this part down. We're just gonna talk about it real quick. So does anyone know the difference between the Continental Army and the militias? Skylar?
Continental armies is regular trained armies in winter training, and the militia is like random people ready to shoot.
Exactly, yeah. The militias didn't really have any training at all. They were just volunteers. So when we read about the militias beating the British Army, that's really awesome because they didn't have training or anything.
And that's really why most of them got killed.
They got slaughtered.
Because they didn't know how to load their guns.
I wish I was life was it looks like that.
Paul Revere and William Dawes rode to Lexington to warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock that the British were coming.
I thought he just called it you.
No, he had a buddy. Yep.
What was the first this next one.
This is the one.
Or just don't give any more.
Yeah, I'd be fine.
I don't like cooking. I like honey. Is anyone still working on this one? Good. The shot heard around the world was fired at Lexington and Concord, and this started the war. This was your bell ringer. What war did it start?
Revolutionary.
Revolutionary War. Thank you. You do know what's going on. Yay.
Wasn't
Shut
that
up, Leon, nobody wants to hear you.
Yes, it was a very big deal because it started a war. So.
how long did the war last?
30 years.
Does anyone know how long the war
30
lasted?
years.
Stop.
7 years, what?
4, 40,
I think it was 7.
78, 90, Jordan's 90.
I say Jordan, the one place was called Lexington.
Lexington.
It was called.
Hey, Ricky, look hot. Ricky. Hey, Ricky.
Why are we talking?
Because I want to.
Skylar, turn around.
What are you gonna teach?
What?
This is cool. Ricky, this is cool. Hey, Vicky.
Why would she
Hey, Skylar.
I can teach
Skylar.
but I have seven in the Friday.
I'm estimating the company were. How long?
Ethan Allen led the Green Mountain Boys. And Green Mountain Boys was just one of the militias.
How long did you go to war?
87 years.
Oh my gosh.
How old are you then?
100.
Hey.
She said 100.
She said 2.
Stop talking. I know how to write people up now. Oh, you did.
Mr. Badge showed her how.
He did. They did. It's okay.
Man, I'm going to talk to Mr. Badge
All you
about
gotta do is
this.
just read it and then it tells you what to do. And then you just.
I'm talking to Mr. Badge.
Are you telling us what to do for not reading?
Hey, Ricky.
It
Look, I
didn't
got
give me instructions.
flashlight.
Why are we talking? Are we done with this now? Okay. Loyalists were colonists that did not consider unfair taxes a good reason for rebellion. They were loyal to Britain. I don't want to be mean, but if you're going to talk, I'll just make more work.
What?
I don't want it to be mean. If you're going to talk, I'll just find more work for us to do.
Sorry. I see the more than that.
Alex, do you have a question?
No.
She had really You shouldn't.
Raise your hand if you're still looking.
Linda. Z. You down, honey. I said, hi.
The colonists that wanted to fight the British for American independence patriots that we just wrote about?
Was.
Loyalists.
I like the red
No, because I would be following all in.
I
you
like
don't
to pick
follow
up that
rules
gun
now.
Takes like 5 hours to reload it. Trevor gonna be sad about it. He used to- What is this about the seventh note?
You want it?
What is this about the seventh note? Hey,
Someone said this is the 8th.
I missed.
Good afternoon, everybody. We do have a couple of announcements I need to take care of very quickly. Area 7 teachers are very proud of their students for having 100% completion on their ILPs. Great job, Area 7 students. At this time, we're going to start our 8th grade leg of the competition between Love's Legends, Gibbons Red Sox, and Blankenship's Mud Hens. So at this time, Mr. Love and your team come down to the gym. Mr. Gibbons and your team come down to the gym, and Mr. Blankenship and your team come down to the gym. As far as student messages, we'll get on the phones today to take care of that rather than the intercom, so expect a phone call from Miss Ann. We'll take care of those. Soccer is home versus Wayne today. Baseball at South Laurel and softball at Jackson. We do have volleyball practice. Gear Up Tutors, those of you staying, if you would call up front to Miss Ann or Miss Helen, please, so we can confirm that. And there will be no Triple C today.
You don't need to move your stuff up here to finish this note. Because you're going right back out. Okay. Everyone except John, go ahead and put your notes away.
Okay.
Don't worry, you get to take it. We're taking a quiz, 10 questions, the usual. Pay attention. 5th period minutes pretty easy.
Why did you announce this first? Good, Duddy. Good.
If you guys are going to talk, it's really easy just to give everyone a 0.
Do we have
I need a paper.
Just right on this.
Okay.
You need a paper.
Okay, I can make it plus.
Are you sure? You guys have 7 minutes. You can go ahead and start. If you finish before the time is up, sit there quietly. Or I'm just going to throw your quiz away.
Turn around.
I need to give you a few kids. Mr. Barrett's got to set up over here for the academic thing. So you might have them for just about the next 10 minutes, a few extras, okay?
Yeah.
I think they're gonna come in.
No, this is sixth period.
It's
It feels like
if you heard me, Lynn, 4 seats. Yeah, 2 more kids. You guys got math work on, okay? And Steve, over in front. Thank you.
Hey, just set them up. Don't worry about trying to figure out what the answer is. We'll punch them in the calculator later, okay? Just do the is over off, percent over 100.
Where are you staring at? You can turn around.
She will. Go ahead and break 'em.
Everybody does.
Take 20 seconds.
I need 22 seconds.
Skylar, I do believe I said if you talk, you get a 0. Okay, go ahead and put your pens and pencils away. Just have your red pens. No. Okay. Sound number 1, citizen soldiers.
Me.
B. Yes, B, militias. Number 2, storage place for arms.
D.
D, Concord. 3, red coat leader.
A.
Hey.
B.
4, leader of Minutemen.
E. D.
E.
C.
And 5, writer of Concord hymns.
C. What was 3 and 4?
And 4, right here.
Oh, I was looking.
Continuing, number 6, who said that blows must decide what would rule America?
A.
Hey. Oh, yeah.
A. A.
Number 7, who had orders to take away the weapons of the Massachusetts militia?
D.
C. Thomas Gage. Number 8, who, along with Paul Revere, warned John Hancock and Samuel Adams that
D.
C. William Dobbs. Number 9, the Green Mountain Boys, who captured the British-held Fort Ticonderoga. Yeah. Led by B. Ethan Allen. And 10, the British learned that defeating the Americans would not be easy after the British won.
D.
A. Bunker Hill. If you're confused, they're right up here. We're about to put it in.
What?
I'll switch it.
Huh.
Don't you put the pins in one?
I'll pick up on the order. Go ahead and pass forward your quizzes. Skylar's gonna pick up the pens.
I got a red pen.
You done, if you guys are quiet, you can watch the snail's race. No talking and then put Skylar.
Are we watching? Snail's race. NASCAR? Is that all I have to turn?
Pick it up.
Place your bets now.
Oh, I broke it.
I place your bets. Let them talk while they're racing. I will turn it off.
I hate snails.
Three on the board.
Also,